Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today we are working on an old Chevy Nova, and it has a 4.8 liter LS engine with some 706 heads, and it has a custom turbo kit built with a billet 7875 turbo from VS Racing or huntertune.com. It has a tile 44 millimeter wastegate that is welded to the turbo housing here, which is actually like the best way to control boost on any setup, is to get the wastegate as close to the turbo as possible. And this one is right on the turbo, so shouldn't have any boost control issues. Super nice car, super well put together. Has a set of Deca 80-pound injectors, and it has a Mac 4-port boost controller, as well as a flex fuel sensor from Matt Happel, Sloppy Mechanics. I got it on sloppymechanics.com. And the flex sensor is all wired in through the Holley Terminator X Max ECU that this car is running. So it is a drive-by-wire, so the throttle body is electronic. There is no throttle cable. It is just driven by the electronic throttle pedal, talking through the ECU and then coming out to the throttle body. But for the most part, it's got stock truck accessories. Looks like a nice aluminum radiator. He did some custom sheet metal work in the fender wells. All that stuff looks really nice. It is running a 2.5 bar GM map sensor. Back here on this little vacuum block, we're running the GM 2.5 bar. It's running a 4L80E transmission with a yank converter, so it does have a higher stall. Looks like Willwood brakes and stuff like that on it. Super nice little car here. It's got a fat 9-inch in it for a rear end. And a full exhaust, full 3-inch exhaust with a muffler. So this thing is quite quiet, if I must say so myself. A lot of times when you put a turbo on these things, the muffler will really kill any sound that you may hear out of the exhaust. So coming around to this side, it's got a nice little TCI shifter in it, but fairly stock interior, other than some upgraded seats. And the customer had complained of a few issues on this thing where the car would have some issues where it would die out at stoplights, and it was having some issues on startup where you would key the car on and try to start it, it would fire, and then it would kind of die. And then you do it a couple times, and then it would finally stay running. And a lot of that is just in the tuning setup and stuff in the Holley Terminator. And also the flex fuel sensor was not enabled or functional on this setup previously. It was previously tuned by another shop, and they just tuned it on straight E85. They didn't do the flex blend or anything like that, so that's kind of why it's here. We're going to be doing flex fuel tuning and try to figure out some of the little bugs that it was having with startup and idling. Coming up to a stoplight, when it come back down to idle, it wouldn't really want to stay running. This does have a stage, we're calling it a stage 2 3/4 cam. It is a custom comp cam with it's almost equivalent to a sloppy stage 3. It's about in between a sloppy stage 2 and a stage 3, so it does have some good chop to it and is going to take a little bit of finesse to get it to idle properly. But the customer also dropped off 5 gallons of 91 octane and 5 gallons of E85. Currently the car only has about a gallon of fuel in it, a gallon of 91, so we're going to start with the 91 tuning, and then we're going to slowly pour ethanol in order to make sure the flex tuning and everything is A-okay. He even gave me a sheet here of where he wired the inputs for the Holley. So input 1 he has for the flex fuel, input 2 is the 2-step, input 4 is for the dome map. So like I said, this thing has a 4-port boost controller, which is air actuated off of the turbo, which typically you can't make it work in a Holley. But we do have this set up with a dome map, so it's taking signal from the map sensor in order to control the boost. So we have that all configured through the Holley, and I'm going to show you guys that stuff here in a second. And then we're just going to run the PWM for the boost controller, the actual solenoid. For the output, he just told me where everything was here. So he told me what spark plugs are in it and what the gap is at as well, and gave me a spare set of spark plugs. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to configure the Holley first, and then we're going to see if we can key this thing on, get it started, and then we'll probably just do some data logging and do a poll and kind of see how far off the fueling is and stuff like that. But first, we have to configure the thing so it's set up and working properly. All right, so I have one of my tune files here. I usually start with the Sloppy Mechanics base files to get a lot of the you know, inputs and outputs that they're already ironed out on some of those base files. So I just took one of Matt's base files that was for a set of different injectors, and I ended up changing some of these sensors over to what we're running. So like the map sensor here was set up for a different map sensor. Now we're running the 2.5 bar map. Just going through, making sure that our sensors are all calibrated to what is on the car. And then for like the base fuel table, we're not really going to touch that until we know where everything is at. The target air fuel ratio I adjusted, so we're targeting, you know, different from what was on the car. If we go to the file that was on the car and we go to the target air fuel, you can see that the pretty much everywhere up to 1 pound of boost is all 14.7, and then it goes down to 13, 12.2, and then 11.5. Where on mine, I like to taper and smooth the target in, because if you go from 14 down to 12.5, sometimes you can get some dips, and it's not really a smooth curve that way for the fueling. So cruising a little bit higher vacuum, we're targeting 14, and then as we slowly get into the throttle, we want it to richen up. So that's kind of how I set them up, and they usually cruise and have better throttle response and stuff like that when you do it this way. Our learn table, we're not going to worry about right now, but we are going to look at we're going to make sure that our closed loop parameters are enabled so we can have correction working up to 50%. That's usually a good spot to start. And our learn is the same way, 50%. And if we go through, for the startup issue, sometimes we have to adjust the spark at idle. And previously, this car was running only 12 degrees of timing at idle. Now we're running around 18 to 20 degrees. So if we look at this file here, this is the one that was in the car. You can see at idle, we're at 12 degrees here, everywhere. So we're gonna bump that up. And another little trick that Matt taught me a while ago is on the timing table, you can run more timing at really low RPM to catch the car if it dips lower than your target idle speed. So below 600 or below 700 RPM, there's actually an additional 2 degrees in this car to help catch the idle if it falls lower than target for some reason. And then you can see this timing map is a lot smoother, transitions and stuff like that, where the previous one is kind of just 40 degrees everywhere, and then it just jumps down to 21 with pretty much no notice at all. So a lot of this could be fixed by just simply going through here and interpolating and smoothing a lot of this, but this timing map that is already worked out should be a better place to start. And another cool thing that's set up on this car is the 4-port boost control that is running through the map sensor, and it's set up as boost by gear. So if we go here in the Holley, you can see it's boost by gear instead of boost by time, how they're normally set up. The dome control is set up through the compressor instead of a fixed. Like a fixed pressure would mean you have a CO2 bottle with a regulator on it. This is based off of the turbo compressor outlet. And then if we go to boost versus gear, this is all set up for a 4L80, so we have 4 gears and a working speed sensor, so this does work because it knows what gear is what speed or whatever, and it can get the input through that. So this is the gear. First gear we're running no additional, second gear no additional, but we would just add to these and set our target boost to this whenever we decide to turn the boost up past whatever the wastegate spring is at. So that's pretty cool how that's set up. Another thing too is the flex sensor is all enabled and working now. So we have our flex fuel multiplier table, which pretty much what this does is when it sees ethanol, it's going to add fuel depending on how much percentage of ethanol is in the car. So at full ethanol percentage, we're adding 35%, and sometimes it is more or less than that depending on, you know, your fuel system and all that kind of stuff. Table 2 is an offset for the target air fuel. So you guys saw earlier our target air fuel table is set up for E85, and when this thing is not, when it's below 50% E85, it actually adds to the target air fuel. So this is -1, which means it's minusing 1 off of our air fuel. So if we're targeting an 11.8, you can take that -1 would be 10.8, which would actually mean that it's richer air fuel instead of leaner. So that's how this thing's set up. The timing offset's the same way. It's pulling a ton of timing off of the base table if the car doesn't have at least 50% E85 in it. So on regular pump gas, we're pulling a ton of timing just because, you know, pump gas and turbos and stuff like that really don't mix all that well. So until we have proper ethanol content, it's going to kind of be a turd. So we're going to get this tune loaded up into the car, and we'll get it fired up, and we'll probably take a data log and do a dyno run on pump gas and kind of see where everything's at. We're just going to put a little pump gas in it because it doesn't have much in it right now. So probably just a gallon or 2 to make sure this thing's going to work good. So you can see currently we're actually a little rich. So the Learn is pulling 13% fuel right now. Or that's what's on the Learn table, but the compensation's at 0. So we should be able to just transfer the Learn data and it would be down to where the compensation's at, which is 0. So. Well, on that run, we ended up blowing a coupler off. It doesn't even look like the clamp was on there, so we'll just have to actually put the clamps on, and hopefully we won't blow another boost pipe. Alright guys, so we got this boost coupler back on. The clamps weren't on before, so hopefully none of the other ones are loose. and we won't have any more pipes blowing off. And then I did go in, I pulled the file off of the ECU and we transferred some of the learn data that's in there, and we're going to try to smooth some of the fueling out because it was a little rich before. So areas like right here, we're going to try to blend in a little bit better. And yeah, we'll see how this next pull goes. We're targeting 10 pounds of boost, so let's see if that map boost thing works. Alright guys, so on that pull, the boost actually went up to like 14 pounds, which I don't really want to run that much boost right now. I want to be able to get control of the boost. So on the data log, if we look at it, you can see our boost solenoid duty cycle right here. And our target boost is 10, and our actual boost is 14.5. So we're actually overshooting because the solenoid duty, 33%, but you can see that, okay, it starts off at 100% duty cycle to spool the turbo quick. And I'm gonna get rid of this because it's overshooting the boost. Because once it reaches 10 pounds and over, then it starts pulling back our solenoid to try to get to that target. So we have to make the table here less aggressive. So this was all at 100 before to help spool the turbo. I put it at 0, and I actually knocked 10% out of all of this. So if anything, we'll be undershooting the boost now, hopefully. So, but this is pretty much at what duty cycle that the solenoid is at is what boost level. So 11 pounds is 10% duty cycle. Sorry if you can't see that. 10% duty cycle is 11.6 pounds. 15 is 20. So we have to figure out what duty cycle is what boost. So this can just shoot to that target, and hopefully it's close, and then the Holley will control the rest. So let's try this out and give it another go. Alrighty guys, so I've been actually talking with Matt from Sloppy Mechanics, and I'm really starting to love these drive-by-wire setups. My mind is kind of blown right now because I haven't really done a lot of drive-by-wire stuff, and this makes me want to build a street car even more. So if anybody is interested still, I may still sell my Mustang. I don't know, 25 grand, come get it. I think I really just do want to build a street car. Like, this thing is giving me a lot of motivation and inspiration to build something like this, because it's crazy how well I got it running and how capable the Holley X-Max really is with controlling the throttle, the electronic throttle, and everything like that. But we did leave off with some issues on the boost control. We were running, so I showed a lot of the boost system setup stuff and the boost control stuff. So we're doing a target boost, and these are the PID settings that I'm using currently. And me and Matt have actually been playing around with different settings for the PID in order to get the boost more stable. Still on the boost by gear curve, we're targeting, you know, whatever boost we want. Just target it and it'll shoot for it. So it's working really well for a air actuated setup with just a 4-port. But this is definitely taking a lot of tuning to get to this point. If you can see this blue line, this is the boost. You can see how smooth this is after it does this initial little spike. And no matter what we've been doing, we cannot get this little spike out of it. It's like nearly impossible, but it is only spiking like a pound. So our average boost where it's flat is like 13 and a half pounds of boost. So if we go right here, you can see 13.4 pounds. And then if we go to the spike area, we're at 14.7. So we're only spiking about a pound of boost right now. Where previously, I don't know if I even have a log, but it was spiking. I might insert a picture if I can remember. The spike was a lot worse, and when the boost came in, it was a little, you know, zigzaggy, and you could kind of hear it coming out of the wastegate like that. It would kind of type of thing. So we've just been ironing a lot of this stuff out, and this spike, believe it or not, that we are running right here may be alleviated once we put E85 in it, because we are only running at that spike point like 8 degrees of timing. 15 pounds of boost or 14.5 pounds of boost, only 4,000 RPM. The timing is very conservative on this because it's on pump gas. And when it's on pump gas, he's not going to be beating on it or anything like that. So we're just setting it up super safe on pump fuel right now. And when we pour E85 in it, those offset tables that I showed you will kick in. And this thing's probably going to pick up like 200 horsepower or something stupid. Currently, it's not making much on pump gas, only a little over 300 horsepower. And I can show you some of the dyno logs here. But man, it is just a really cool driving car. It's awesome. So you can see our power curve right now, it's begging for timing like crazy. That's why it's got a little bit of zigzag in it. But the boost is stable. It's just down on ignition severely. So we may even bump up the pump gas timing map a little bit, just because I know this thing needs like another 4 degrees at least to get this a little smoother. And it would probably make 350 wheel, or maybe closer to 400 on pump gas. And then, like I said, we're gonna pour the E85 in it and let this thing sing. So I'm super excited. I think this is some really good information, and I've learned a lot today. Thanks again to Matt Happel for, you know, reaching, you know, when I reached out to him, he was very helpful, and I can't thank him enough. I'm gonna just show you how good this thing runs, just for a little key on. I was playing around with some idle stuff too, because like I said, I haven't done a whole lot of drive-by-wire tuning with idling. But what we're searching for here, like just look at this. So the parked position cold, this is the first time I've actually cold started it. It just shoots for that target that you set, and it never strays away from it when you get it tuned in. This thing hot is perfect. Like, it'll key on perfectly fine hot. I'm still working on some of the cold start stuff, as you guys saw. So below like 150 degrees, I'm thinking. So if we go to our idle here, idle parked, we're gonna probably have to manipulate some of this stuff in here a little bit. So I'm gonna just kind of fill these in up to 85, so this becomes a little bit smoother, and it's actually gonna bring this area up where I think we're having the issues. So we're gonna fill row. It's making it smoother now, so we're gonna try to bump this up a little bit. We'll pump like 10 into here. Offset 10. We'll fill that. And fill this. So I'm gonna try this change tomorrow when I come back out here, see if anything is better with the parked position stuff. But yeah, we're working stuff out with it. I think in the next video we are going to get some E85 poured in it and go for some power. It sucks because this thing only has one fuel pump, so we're going to be limited on the amount of fuel that we can supply the motor. So the boost isn't really probably going to make, you know, I don't know how much power it's going to be capable of. This is a Walbro Hellcat pump, so we'll see how far that'll actually go on E85. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'm really excited for this car, and I can't wait to get it fully tuned in. So stay tuned, subscribe if you guys are new, like the video if you enjoyed it, and thanks for learning with me today. Have a great night and a better tomorrow. See ya.